Survivor Series, right? This week it's the 38th annual Survivor Series. You're right, and we've talked a lot about that. But Survivor Series as a whole, right? 38 years or 39, I guess, if you say this is the 38th. I don't know, 40 years. I don't know how the math works, right?
Long time.
We know it's not the 38th anniversary. Let's just say that, right, of Survivor Series. What are some like major Survivor Series moments that made it? You always talk about this being one of your favorite pay-per-views. What are some moments that made this your favorite pay-per-view?
Well, I mean, there's three in particular. I'll start with the most recent one because of recency bias. We already touched on it in the beginning of our podcast this week, and it's the CM Punk return. I mean, for a long time, we never thought CM Punk would ever step foot back in the WWE, ring, on a microphone, anything, and he just shows up at Survivor Series. And the way they did it last year in 2023 was really cool because it's like they're finishing the broadcast, quote unquote. Like they're signing off, and then here comes CM Punk's music. I thought that was a cool moment. That that's to me that's part of the moments that I really like. I mean, Randy Orton was also there as well. Like that was cool. He was back after 18 months, which is crazy because like two big names, two big stars returned at last year's Survivor Series. I don't think we're gonna get that this year, but nevertheless, great moment. And then I'm gonna go back to 1990.
1994. Oh, I was gonna say you got 94 on there. I know you do. I know you got Chuck Norris on there.
Well, yeah, I mean I guess I forgot about Chuck. Honestly, oh my goodness, I can't believe that.
Undertaker Yokozuna, 1994. Chuck Norris, a special enforcer, right?
Well, I do have Undertaker, and it's his debut in 1990. So that's obviously one of the biggest moments in our sports entertainment industry because Undertaker is one of the biggest names. He's got a cult following to this day. He's one of the biggest stars that WWE's ever created. And that was his debut, 1990. And then for me,
his official debut, yes, on television.
Yeah. Yes, which you can go back. We have the footage from a match.
We have the footage right here on our YouTube channel to go check out. Undertaker, 2 matches that he taped prior to Survivor Series and where he was referred to as Kane the Undertaker before they shortened it up for his Survivor Series debut. And he took on some jobber right here in Syracuse. He took on a jobber in Rochester, New York as well. Those matches aired after the Survivor Series, but he was in front of a WWE crowd, WWF crowd prior to the Survivor Series.
Shameless plug. We do have that in the archive, so go ahead and check that out. And then my last one, I mean, it's the lowest hanging fruit possible. It's the Montreal Screwjob back in '97. I think that's kind of obvious. It changed the tide of the business. And honestly, like, going back and also listening to other podcasts and just kind of other content creators out there in the space, it's, you forget that there was a lot of not goodwill when Bret Hart got the screw job done to him. And then within a 4-month span, you lose Shawn Michaels, with his back issue because he hit the corner of the table and to screw his back up. So you lose 2 stars in a 4-month span. So that whole sequence was obviously Bret Hart spit in McMahon's face, like the whole thing. How can you talk Survivor
Let me ask you a question
without talking about it?
Well, let me ask you a question. 2 back-to-back years, 1996, 1997. You remove one from history. And by removing one from history, you can't say down the line something's going to happen. You have to remove that moment from history. What changes the business more? No Rock debut in 1996 or no Montreal Screwjob?
Honestly, I would still go with the Montreal Screwjob, to be honest with you. The reason why I say that is it was kind of to my previous point. It left a lot of bad taste in a lot of mouths of wrestling fans. And I feel like during that stretch, WCW was getting that steam, obviously, the 83 weeks that we all know with Eric Bischoff and all that stuff. Like, there was a lot of negative feelings towards WWE because of, what they did to Bret. Obviously, Shawn Michaels got hurt. And there was a lot of jumping ship to Nitro. And, I don't think the war would have been what it was if it wasn't for something like that, because don't forget, Bret Hart had that, essentially that lifetime contract with WWE, and then not that long after that contract, he was no longer in WWE. So let's not forget that.
1997 Survivor Series essentially created the Mr. McMahon character in the WWE, WWF. Survivor Series, as we talked about, War Games is now a part of Survivor Series, but the Elimination Chamber debuted at the Survivor Series. Ambulance match debuted at the 2003 Survivor Series with Shane McMahon and Kane. A coffin match. Undertaker's had a ton of casket matches, coffin matches, but his first one in the WWF and the first one essentially in the WWF, even without Kane, right, was Undertaker versus Kamala in Survivor Series 1992. So a lot of debut matches, a lot of big moments at the Survivor Series. Don't forget the Big Egg, right? Don't forget the Big Egg. I attended that Survivor Series 2021. The Big Egg, Vince McMahon. It's crazy to think how much we've evolved, right? Because that in 2021 was such a black stain on the Survivor Series, and now here in 2024 we got the War Games, and you're at that time you were sitting here being like, oh, what are we going back to PG crap WWE being stupid nonsense like the are we going back to the gobbledygooker day, which, speaking of egg, right, I mean that is so apropos, and essentially the modern day gobbledygooker in 2021 we thought and in 2024 luckily nothing silly, no nonsense like that. We got some legit good matches, good feuds, good stories, stuff like that. But Survivor Series, right, it's a big event. Vince McMahon almost killed it in 2010 because he thought, hey, it's passe. And I don't disagree, because the 5-on-5 format is passe. Keeping the name, though, was good, and they evolved, right? I agree that, sometimes certain things don't resonate. And if Survivor Series had to just be a 5-on-5 pay-per-view event, and that's the only way it could survive, then I necessarily maybe wouldn't I would understand why it would have been killed. Yeah. But you can keep the name and evolve it, and that's what they've done, right? Obviously, the first 5 Survivor Series, it took until 1991, Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan, before we had a one-on-one match that wasn't a Survivor Series match. 87, 88, 89, and 90 all were 100% Survivor Series matches. And nowadays, we talk about it, with wrestling on all the time, seeing big stars in a wrestling ring isn't as stunning or shocking or cool as it was. But now, nowadays seeing Roman Reigns in the ring isn't as worthy of just paying money as it was back then to see Hulk Hogan in an Ultimate Warrior or Andre the Giant. So, it needed to evolve, and it's crazy that it evolved into a form where now we have 5-on-5 matches under War Games, and it's still it's weird how they evolved, but still it's still Survivor Series, because at the end of the day, it's 5 guys versus 5 guys, right back where it started, in a different way, because the first pinfall loses in the War Games format, right, with everybody coming in at different intervals. So it's weird how we started with 5-on-5 as your main event, and we're currently at 5-on-5 38 years later with your main event. And it's just as strong today as it was then, because of the evolution that came along the way. But Survivor Series, I don't know what my favorite moment in Survivor Series. I really did like Rock teaming up with John Cena right before their match at WrestleMania, when it was the once in a lifetime, and they essentially, the last time a big pay-per-view was at Madison Square Garden. R-Truth and The Miz against Rock and John Cena. No titles on the line. It just felt like a really big match, and it felt really cool, and it felt like a real good appetizer on the road to WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden, stuff like that. So a lot of good moments, a lot of bad, boring moments. But yeah, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels twice now at Survivor Series, because 1992 they fought in the main event for the title. Yeah. Overall, like I said, 94, you had Undertaker versus Yokozuna in a casket match with Chuck Norris just standing around shaking his, waving his hand, I guess, as an appearance. 95, 96, other than The Rock, those are forgettable. 98, the Deadly Games, where they tried to recreate the Screwjob, which was stupid. 99, Stone Cold getting hit by the car, which turned into a year's storyline. 2000, don't forget, Triple H was in the car that, Stone Cold lifted up on the crane and flipped over. Nowadays, if that sort of thing happened, the next day we'd be watching on YouTube Triple H running around showing everyone how it happened, and seeing Triple H and Stone Cold shaking hands, agreeing to how they're going to pull this off. But back then, right, we had we know he didn't die. We know, obviously, if you were watching wrestling in the year 2000, and you don't need any backstage or peek behind the curtains. You just need to see that. You just need to show somebody that and go, listen, you don't need to tell me wrestling's fake. He just got dropped 30 feet in the air upside down in a car, and he's not dead. So that's proof right there. 2001, Alliance, WWF, essentially, if they lost, right, was going to go out of business. WCW, the Alliance versus WWF, winner take all, 2001. 2002, as I said about the Elimination Chamber. 2003, which I thought was a great pay-per-view, one of the ones that gets a little bit forgotten about. But if you remember at the time, because I do very vividly, it had like a really big feel, like a WrestleMania kind of feel, and had the Shane McMahon versus Kane ambulance match. It had Undertaker versus Vince McMahon buried alive match. It had a lot of like big matches on the card, and it had like a really big feel. Survivor Series, it's evolved over the years. A lot of great moments, and more importantly, as we've learned with the names of pay-per-views like Hell in a Cell and stuff like that, if you make WWE work, you don't need the names. You need the matches. Bad Blood is a cool name. You don't need to give us Hell in a Cell at it. You just if you know that I'm going to a pay-per-view, you're going to put on good matches. That's all you need to do, right? And that's what they always did. You bought tickets to No Mercy because it was a pay-per-view, not because it had a specific match tied to it, because it's a pay-per-view, and at a pay-per-view they're going to give you good matches. And essentially, SummerSlam's a great example of that. They sell out a stadium for SummerSlam without any matches announced because you just know there's going to be good matches. You don't need to be like, well, they're going to have this ladder match every year. They're going to have this tag title match or whatever, right? So Survivor Series can stick around. It doesn't always have to be War Games, but keep it around and make sure that you're always making it feel like a big pay-per-view, regardless of whatever matches you give to it.
Exactly. I agree.